3, 2, 1, when you're ready.
Lease option explained. This is part 2. In the previous video, I explained briefly what a lease option is and how it works. And in this video, I'm going to be going further and explaining the process from once you found a deal and how to complete on a deal, ensuring that you're protected and the seller is also protected. So if you've liked what you've seen so far from the previous video and you want to see more, remember to hit the subscribe button. And if you do like this video and the content in it, remember to also hit the like button. Okay, so now you found a property where the seller or landlord is open to the idea of a lease option, which is great, and numbers potentially work for you. It's in a lucrative area and you feel that you could gain from the capital appreciation and also from rental income. So what you're going to now do here is put together a heads of terms. So what a heads of terms is simply the information that you're going to pass on to the solicitor to actually draft the option agreement for you. So it's going to have the details of the property, the details of the owner, if there's a mortgage on the property or not, the information for the mortgage company, the agreed purchase price, and any other term you've put in there, such as transferable, the option being transferable, and if there are any rent increases within the period of the lease option agreement. Remember, a heads of terms is a blank piece of paper. What goes on it is what's been agreed by yourself and the seller or the landlord. So if you agree that the first 6 months of the agreement is going to be rent-free, that's what's going to go on the heads of terms. There's no set guideline on how it must be. It's simply what is agreed between yourself as the potential buyer and the seller of the property. So you can put whatever you like in there as long as it's legal and it's been agreed by yourself and the seller. So for example, there was a deal that I was working on, similarly a lease option as well. And what I said on the heads of terms is the initial investment I put into the property, which was around £15,000 to £20,000, would be taken out of the purchase price later on down the line, which is about 6 or 7 years. So again, a lease option heads of terms is simply a blank piece of paper. You put what you want on there, that's of course legal, and it's in agreement between yourself and the seller. One of the most important things when doing a lease option is appointing the right solicitor. Believe it or not, there are a few property solicitors out there who do not know or understand how a lease option agreement works. So you need one who is aware of this type of agreement and has experience drafting this agreement. So if you're struggling to find one, you can send me an email to the email address below and I'll be able to refer you to a solicitor who's experienced in this area. In order to quicken the process of this lease option agreement, I would always advise that you find a solicitor for the seller who would represent them for this transaction. The reason I say this is because the seller could use their own solicitor that they've used for conveyancing purposes and who may not necessarily understand the lease option agreement. Now this could delay the whole process from 4 to 6 weeks, and it could take even more than 2 months where it's not necessary. So if you were to appoint them a solicitor who understands lease options, the process could be a lot quicker. Now again, if you don't have a second solicitor, the easiest thing to do is to ask your solicitor that you're using for your agreement to put you in contact with another solicitor who can represent the seller, because of course if they've done lease options before, they're going to have conversed with other solicitors to complete on the option agreement. You're going to come across some sellers and landlords who are going to object to this and say that, you know, they're adamant on using their solicitor. Now a way around this, or an incentive, is to offer to pay their legal fees. Yes, it's going to come at a cost of maybe £750 to £1,200, but you're saving yourself a lot of time and a lot of hassle. So if you're paying for their legal fees and you're appointing them a solicitor, you're likely to get the deal done very quickly. The most important reason you appoint your seller or landlord a solicitor is to avoid legal complications in the future. Now, what's happened in the past with some people who have carried out options is a seller or a landlord agrees for their property to be taken on an option and let's say 3 to 5 years down the line, the area that the property is booming, the property price has more than doubled, and then the owner, the seller, the landlord is going to come back and say they want their property back. Now, the way they will win in court is if they say that they were not legally advised. Because they were not legally advised and signed the document, they have power and could potentially get their property back off you. But if they are appointed a solicitor and were legally represented by a qualified solicitor, then they cannot use the excuse of not being legally advised on how a lease option agreement works. Another thing that your solicitor must do is fill in the form RX1, which enables you to have a restriction on the property that you're taking on an option. Now, without this RX1 or this restriction on the property, the landlord or seller could secretly sell the property behind your back. Now, this is not likely to happen, but I've heard stories and it has happened to some people in the past. So an RX1 must be filled out and a restriction must be placed on the property. Now, with this restriction on the property, the owner, the seller, cannot sell the property without your consent. So you're protected and you know that the property is secure for the duration of your agreement until you're actually ready to purchase and complete on the property. Now, let's assume you've completed on this lease option agreement and the restriction is on the property and you've picked up the keys. Yes, you're going to benefit from the capital appreciation maybe 3 years or 5 years down the line, but of course you need to make a profit during this period. So for the purpose of this video, I'm going to keep everything simple. You've got a 3-bedroom property with 2 reception rooms. The simple thing to do is to make it a 4-bedroom HMO. So you're going to rent it out on a room by room basis. Again, keeping it very simple, you make a gross profit of £2,000 per calendar month. Now, with this £2,000, you're going to pay the landlord rent of £600. So you're left with £1,400. And you're going to deduct the bills. Again, keeping it simple, is £400 per calendar month, leaving you a net profit of £1,000 per calendar month. Of course, there's going to be maintenance and voids here and there, but let's just keep it simple. It's £1,000 profit per calendar month. Now, if you were to save this £1,000 per calendar month over 5 years, you will have saved up £60,000. Now, this is more than enough, depending on where you're based in the United Kingdom, for a deposit based on a 75% mortgage. So you're putting in 25% as a deposit. So that £60,000 will be more than enough for a 25% deposit to actually purchase the property during the duration of this option agreement. Another way to negotiate a lease option deal is what I call the 50-50 uplift. Now, let's say you've agreed to purchase a property for £100,000 in 3 years or 5 years down the line. Bear in mind, even though it's stated at 3 to 5 years, you can complete in 1 month, you can purchase it in 1 year, but keeping it simple, let's call it 3 to 5 years. And in the 5-year period, the property is now worth £150,000, even though you're buying it at £100,000. What you can agree with the seller is a 50-50 split. So that £50,000 that the property value is increased by, you get to keep £25,000 and the seller also gets £25,000, which I believe is a fair deal and both parties walk away happy. Now, this brings the video to an end. If you found it useful or if you have more questions to ask on lease option agreements, send me an email to the email address below and I'll be happy to answer your questions. Now, if you want to see more content like this, remember to subscribe to my channel and also hit the like button if you like what you see.